Welcome back to Youngster Cup. We are doing a special big show tonight. We're going to be doing the battle for the top four. We'll review the top four standings. And tonight I'm going to be going with some four special guests. So we've got Thomas from representing Man United. How you doing?
Yeah, all good, homie. How are you?
Perfect. We've got Liam from representing Liverpool. How you doing, Liam?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. And we've got Tim that's going to represent Man City. How you doing, Tim?
Great, Holmes. Nice to see you.
Good.
Sorry, I was doing the stream celebrating the Champions League win. Sorry.
That's okay, no brother. We've got Prime representing Chelsea. How you doing, Prime?
I'm good.
Good. Good to have you all on tonight, boys. So we're just gonna go around and ask you guys honestly. So obviously, don't lie and say you got the prediction. Like you didn't get it. Just be honest. But at the beginning of the season, we'll start with you, Liam. What was your prediction for the top four at the beginning of the season?
I won't lie. I had Liverpool winning the league, as most Liverpool fans probably would have done with the additions of Thiago and Jota. City finishing second, Chelsea finishing third, and Tottenham finishing fourth. So I couldn't have been much further away from the truth. But again, that's predictions.
What about you, Prime? What was your prediction for the start of the season?
My predictions were it was either City first, Liverpool second, or Liverpool first, City second, and then Chelsea and Man United. I was the only one. We did them on the terrace before the season started, and I put United in top four, and so did the other United lot because of how they thought the window would end up. And then we did our predictions again as soon as the window closed. And because they didn't get Sancho, they were all deflated and depressed. And I was the only one who still backed United to finish in the top four.
Here for a very special interview. You can now call him recurring guest.
Thank you, Prime. What about you, Tim? What was your top four prediction?
Fortunately, I've got mine written down and recorded from the beginning of the season. And you won't be surprised to hear I predicted that City would come roaring back and win the title. I had Liverpool in second. I had Chelsea in third. I was very impressed by their glittering new strike force. I thought they'd score pots of goals. Anyway, and then I put United in fourth.
Interesting. Okay. And you, Tom, what was your prediction for the top four?
Yeah, so I had City to win. I had Liverpool second. I had United in third, and I had Spurs to get fourth. I thought Jose with a full season would do quite well. I did leave Chelsea out, but it was difficult. I didn't think Lampard would. I thought he'd finish the season, but I just didn't think he'd get top four. But I went Spurs. I ended up with egg on my face.
Yeah, just going to see reasonable comments in the chat. Good to see John Mack. I think for me, when I look at the top four prediction, I actually had Liverpool obviously first, City second, then I had United, and I felt it was a toss-up between Chelsea and Leicester. I didn't go with Chelsea purely because I didn't think Lampard was going to do it this year, So obviously it was a big surprise to me when he left and Tuchel came in, but I didn't think they'll get top four with Lampard. So looking at now the season, were the final four positions a surprise to you, especially how the season went? We started with Tim. Do you think, that West Ham or Leicester were going to get top four in terms of Leicester being?
I'd say that the surprise really depends upon when you're asking the question. If you ask the question in January, I think all of the top four would be a surprise, or the order of the top four. I think if you're asking the question about 6 weeks ago, you wouldn't really have put much money on Liverpool sustaining that winning run that they made to the end of the season. And in the end, when you step back from it all and just look at the overall profile, I think the top four are probably not that much of a surprise, bearing in mind they got them all right, but not necessarily in the right order.
Interesting. What about you, Liam? Were you expecting, obviously, was there a point where you thought Liverpool weren't going to get top four, and were you actually assuming that, again, like Leicester, West Ham, or even Villa? There was a point when Villa had 3 games in hand, and they were looking quite strong. Did you think they were going to do a surprise and get top four, or did you think? What were you think? What was your final thinking of over top four?
I was kind of sat on the fence with us getting top four. I always believed that, again, if we found a rather stable system and people at the back, with Phillips, again, being there as a mainstay, and also with Williams and then Kabak as well, we kind of got a thing going at the back. So I think that helped. But again, I wasn't too sure when you looked. We were 8th with 10 games to go. You wouldn't have been putting money, like Tim said, on Liverpool to get top 4. But again, when we can put that run of results together, winning 5 in his last 5, I thought, here we go, we're on a run, and we did. But I must admit, probably at the midway stage or around 13, 14 games, I was starting to think this isn't possible. And I saw Leicester probably sneaking in there, because there were a time where Leicester were looking as though they were dead certs for top 4. And then, again, like last year, it came down to the final day and they missed out.
I think at one point I wasn't sure that Liverpool were going to get top 4, so I was thinking at times that Leicester were going to do it because they were in top 4 for so long. But then obviously it was the annual Rodgers Botter job that cost them. So so that kind of opened the door for us. But going on to you, Prime, did you feel that that top 4 was going to end up how you did, and were you surprised? Do you think it was going to change Monopoly?
Liverpool was a bit of a surprise how they've been all season, which look, I don't put it down to just a few injuries. I think it's Klopp himself and how he managed the squad. I think he managed it poorly, to be fair. And yes, they got top 4, but that's due to Leicester losing or not performing well in their remaining games, and even Chelsea themselves, and letting Liverpool come back into it. So I think Liverpool this season, they haven't been that great, in my personal opinion.
Do you feel overall that Leicester, West Ham at any point we're going to get top 4, breaking that monopoly?
West Ham, no, they were always going to fall away. Leicester, yes, I thought they would. However, they won the FA Cup, so then the whole narrative can change, and they can say they finished 5th and they won the FA Cup. It's a successful season for them.
That's true. Although I think I always stand on the side with the FA Cup that while it's great, it doesn't help you take the club to the next level. In terms of attracting players on the European stage, no one really cares outside of England.
I think it does. When for example, there's a lot of similarities, I guess, between this and what Poch did at Spurs. At least in my personal opinion, I never truly respected that team because, for me, I never feared them doing anything. They could finish 3rd or 4th or even 2nd, but there was no fear factor for me that they are going to win the league. And that's due to the fact of they never pushed and challenged in the domestic cups. They never tried to win it. So I didn't take them seriously in trying to win the league or trying to win the Champions League. I think with Leicester now, this is not even me saying they're going to win the league next season or even challenge, but they're able to galvanize a winning mentality, and that can help them as they continue to grow and continue to build. And plus, Leicester's recruitment is fantastic as well. So they don't need to spend, 50 mil on a Werner, or 60 mil to buy someone like Riyad Mahrez, or 72 mil on whoever. They can get players for quite cheap and develop and grow, and that's their model, and they're doing quite well.
Okay. Did you think the top 4 was going to end in the way it did, Tom, or were you feeling that one of Leicester, West Ham were going to break in, or did you feel? What was your feel overall the final positions?
Yeah, I think right up until the Leicester Chelsea game, I thought Leicester would get top four and Liverpool wouldn't. I think the winning of the FA Cup, I think Prime probably touched on it. Like the winning of the FA Cup might have changed. Like it's difficult for players to come back, whatever it was, 2-3 days later, and then play Chelsea and try and G themselves up for that again after going through everything on the Saturday in the FA Cup. But once they lost that game, like Brendan's done it a couple of times. I think he's a great manager, but there's something broken with him and his teams come the last 3, 4, 5 games of the season. I think that's 2 seasons in a row with Leicester and obviously with Liverpool as well. But yeah, I think the top, like United, City, I think they were always getting in. Chelsea, when they were losing to Villa, I think there was a moment I thought Chelsea mightn't get out on the last day, mightn't get into that top 4. There was definitely a moment, but then Leicester just collapsed. I think overall, though, I think it's forget about positions, like who finished where, but like the top 4 as a whole, I think is fair. I think it's a fair reflection of the best 4 teams in the league going into the Champions League next season. I think it ended the way it on paper should have.
Interesting points. What about you, Tim? Like, how did you feel overall in terms of the top 4 and final seating positions? You're muted, Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like I said at the top, ultimately no surprises in the end. I think what we have to all agree on, surely, if we can't agree about anything else, is that this was the weirdest season of them all. Last season was weird. It stopped and started. It was partly crowds. It was partly no crowds. This season just gone by was the weirdest season of all, with no pre-season, compressed fixtures, no crowds, etc. So I think that in many ways, those who look for the romantic, somebody like a Leicester or a West Ham breaking into the top 4, in many ways, it was a sort of a heartbreaking season, really, because these teams threatened it for so long. And as you say, the sort of Rodgers curse of the back end of the season and that what you might call romantic breakup of the usual suspects didn't happen. I think that probably reflects squad size and available resources in a slightly dull way. It was an interesting season from my personal point of view, of course, because it had the roller coaster aspect of being terrible to begin with, followed by absolutely tremendous. So, and then a little bit terrible in the final game. But, to that extent, talking about the league, it seems to me that probably the bookmakers would probably have called that at the outset, or most of the time would have called that at the outset. And in the end, the sort of juggernauts came through.
Yeah, I think that's true. I do think it was a reflection of, the best teams in the league. And it brings me to another question I want to ask you guys. Like, we often hear about there being a top 6 before. Every time they talk about the teams, they always mention, Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea, Spurs, and Arsenal. Now, I want to ask you all this question. Like, is there a true reflection that it's really now just the top 4 and that Spurs and Arsenal shouldn't be really included? And although Leicester and West Ham did as well as they did, no one expected them to get as far. There's always that doubt in terms of whether they have that actual quality mentality to really break into the top 4. So should it just really be saying it's only really a top 4, and the others there's no top 6 anymore? So we'll start with you, finishing up. Start with you, Tom, on
that. As far as I can see, you'd need to wait another season or 2 just to be sure, because obviously there are windows and new managers and so on. But I think we can be pretty sure that Arsenal are not part of the top 6 sides in this country. They're in some sort of strange limbo waiting room where nobody really knows what their targets realistically are. Tottenham, I think, are a funny one. I think they took a lot of people by surprise by being so terrible. And at the same time, ultimately didn't finish that far down the table, and importantly for them, a point ahead of Arsenal. I think at the moment, you're right to say that the solid core is 4, and 5 and 6, as we've seen, could really be any from a selection of about 6 or 7 teams. So to my way of thinking, that six hasn't completely been exploded. And of course, hilariously, the ridiculous European Super League proposition was based upon the six English sides, of which we represent four, being forever in perpetuity, being in this glittering, lucrative tournament. Well, it just proves, doesn't it, what a stupid idea that was, and offensive. You should qualify on merit each and every season. And when you get knocked out, you should get knocked out and stay knocked out until you requalify. End of story. So I would say that we have a four. It remains to be seen whether those North London clubs might claw their way back in. We might be talking in 12 months' time and talking about how Arsenal or Tottenham managed to get themselves back into the top six. But I strongly suspect it might be Spurs, but it won't be Arsenal.
Going on to you, Liam, do you feel that now there's only a genuine top four only, and that we should not be including Arsenal, Spurs, and that it shouldn't be? Because I also saw them saying like Leicester were now in the top five with us. Part of it, like, you know, I don't believe they are. But do you feel that there really is like more than a top six, or just a top four now?
I think I'd echo what Tim just said, really. I think we've got 2 seasons this season and the season previous where we've got this established top four of the teams, obviously we're discussing about here. But I think if you give it another couple of seasons, you'll maybe see that top four that you've just been talking about actually cement itself together, and you see those teams all being able to maybe fight for league titles, etc. But again, you can't really dismiss Spurs. You can probably dismiss Arsenal at this point. But again, Leicester are the same. They've been so close twice to getting top four as well. So I wouldn't say we've really closed off this top four and that the top six isn't a thing anymore. I wouldn't refer it as top six. I'd say big six based on, I don't know, reputation, and I'd say trophies won, but obviously Tottenham don't apply to that bracket. But even still, I'd say big six is the word to use when we're talking about the traditional clubs we're talking about in this European Super League fiasco rather than a top six. But I think to answer your question of a top four, I say if you give it another season, maybe 2 seasons, and we've still got Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United and Manchester City in the top four, maybe you are getting back to where we were a few years ago when we had pretty much the same top four every season. But for the time being, I've got a sneaky feeling that Leicester or Spurs might be able to, or who knows, someone else might be able to get in anytime soon.
What about you, Prime? Do you feel that we have now just a pure top four, or do you feel there's still a top six? And should Arsenal be included in it?
I don't like the term top six. Me growing up, it has always been the top four, and that's what it is, because the top 4 teams that finish in the Premier League, they qualify for the Champions League. 5th place it's automatic for Europa, so I guess fine, you can say top 5. But I think the only reason we say top 6 is because what is it? I think the first couple of seasons when Fergie retired, and couple of seasons when Fergie retired, United I think finished like 6th and 7th. And then now Arsenal have topped out for 4 years of the Champions League in total, and the last 2 they finished 8th. I think that's why we say top 6, but in reality it's top 4, and that's how I always view it, as top 4. But in terms of this whole top 6 thing, yeah, I think Arsenal have to stay out of this conversation, because they it's not even a joke. They do have to stay out, because what more can Leicester do? They've, in the last 5 years, they've won the league. When they were in the Champions League for a season, they got to the quarterfinals, I think, and they play. And even when they got knocked out, they played very well. They've now won the FA Cup. They finished not top 4, but they've challenged for top 4 twice, with squads where you can't say it's comparable to Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, obviously. Spurs maybe. I think Arsenal needs to stay out of this conversation. Maybe, depending how next season goes, Spurs as well might have to stay out of the conversation for top 4 and top 6 in terms of being, the big club. And I know historically Arsenal fans are always going to say that they're big, but currently you're not really doing anything right now. Your London rivals have just won their second Champions League. You know, Leicester have won a Premier League and an FA Cup right now. Like, what are you guys even doing? You can't be part of this conversation.
Just go to everyone. Smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't done already. We appreciate it. Just gonna go on to you, Tom. So, what's your opinion on this? Do you feel there's only really a top 4 now, or are you the inclination that there's a top 6? And if so, should teams like Arsenal and Tottenham be included in it, or should be now replaced with West Ham and Leicester?
No, I think I'd echo what pretty much the guys have said. Like, I think for me, it's a top 4. For me, it is the top 4 as it is this season. I think, again, echo Liam, Tim, Prime, like Leicester, maybe Spurs are probably the biggest threats to that top 4. I think West Ham this season is as good as it was and as good as David Moyes did with them. I think it's a bit of a one-off freak season. Like, I don't expect them to be anywhere near the top 6, 7, 8 teams next season. I think as well, I think the gap's just going to get bigger between us and your Leicesters and Spurs. Like, I think this summer City are going to spend, Chelsea already spent a lot of money, they'll probably spend again. Liverpool, we'll spend. Like, we'll just continue to spend and increase that gap. And the only way someone breaks into that top 4 for me is if I think Tim said it, like, the season was just a freak of a season. Like, Liverpool, I don't know what happened. You know, you got in by the skin of your teeth. City didn't start the season that well. Chelsea sack a manager and have a miraculous Lazarus of a second season. Like, it took all of that to happen for Leicester to try and get into that top 4. You know, you need all those moving pieces to happen for that to then happen. So to me, it's top 4 as is. I don't see it changing unless something seismic happens. But no, top 4 is as it is.
Yeah, I think I echo all of your comments in that. So now we're just going to go on to, I'm going to give you each some time to talk about your club, and we're going to go through exactly how the overall season's gone. So we'll start with Tim. So obviously, Tim, looking at Man City's overall season, like, how's the season? Obviously, won the title. You know, that's Pep's 4th title now. How's the season gone for you overall when you first went into the season, and how it's finished for you? How's it gone for you?
Okay, Holmes. So here's what everybody wants to hear. We've had a terrible season, and we should sack the manager immediately. No, but joking aside, we've had an absolutely tremendous season. Obviously, that strange slow start, record-breaking bad start for Guardiola, and we've all heard the stories about how key players, Fernandinho and all the people in the captains group, held a crisis meeting around about the December-January time. They all agreed that everybody just wasn't doing what they needed to do. They weren't training hard enough and they weren't playing hard enough. And heads were knocked together quite clearly, and the results are there for all to see with the record-breaking winning run, etc. So, all joking aside, it seems to me that, without wanting to steal anybody's thunder, every team that's represented here, just like City, are entitled to say that it's been a good bad or a bad good season. Because if you ask me about the first part of the season, which doesn't really matter anymore, we weren't very good at all. Then we found our groove and we've been fantastic. And then obviously the frustration is that in the very final game of the season, the one that we all really wanted to win, we managed to get beaten by the better side, Prime, on a one-off game. So I would say that I can't really speak highly enough of the achievements of the season with that one slight irritating failure. But let's not be silly about it. We aren't going to be too upset with Guardiola. He is the best manager in the world, and he's proved it this season, with one final reversion to the cliche of overthinking the final of the Champions League. So no sweat, Pep, win it next season.
So what was your standout match that made you think, in terms of, was your team's best performance this season?
Well, if you're talking about the standout match that we'll look back on in years to come and say, yes, I remember that with great relish, I'll go and seek it out and watch it again, etc., etc., it's got to be, sorry, Holmes, Liam, Anfield 4-1. That's just a monkey off your back. It's just, I mean, in many ways, I did the preview for that with you at home. And you might recall my preview for the game was it's going to be either a tight, cagey affair, not much in it, or we could run free and score lots of goals. In fact, it turned out that I was right on both counts, because for an hour or so, it was a tough, tight game. And then we ran away with things. Our press and our passing just, blew you away. And, the crowning glory, you always like a nice sort of celebratory moment to really emphasize these wins. And when Foden smashes it into the roof of the net, that's just very nice indeed. So Anfield 4-1, that was the standout match for me.
And what was your most difficult opponent you think you faced this season?
Listen, I'd like to run a narrative that it was Brighton and Hove Albion, but in reality, of course, we all know it was Chelsea, with, I suppose, an honourable mention for United, actually. But no, it has to be Chelsea. Even though, in some respects, I'm about to mention a game against Chelsea, the one that we did win, as being a very important fixture. Nevertheless, it's right to say that even with strange lineups, etc., the three subsequent defeats to Chelsea were, on reflection, a little bit of a negative in the Guardiola column, but a very big positive in the Tuchel column. Just in case Tuchel needed any further confirmation, his coaching chops are very well established, especially by the Champions League final, but also by the other aspects of his performance this season. So, yeah, it's got to be Chelsea.
And who would you have down as your player of the season?
Well, you could go around the houses. You could talk about all sorts of players deserving of very high praise. Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne again, Phil Foden. But ultimately, there can only be one best player of the season, the iconic one, the one that changed the way we played, stopped us being flaky forever, and that's Ruben Dias.
So obviously, it's going to be easier for you to say your young player of the year is Foden then.
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
Your young player of the year is Foden.
Yes, I have to say, we need to be a little bit careful about young player of the year because, of course, Ruben Dias still counts as a young player. But I think if he's got the player of the year award, it would be rude not to give it to the one, the only, Philip Walter Foden. What a season he's had, and what a season he's going to have next season, and many seasons to come.
So going into the summer, what do you think is the key for City in order to take the club to a further high level?
Well, I think the dogs in the street know this one. It's a 20-plus goal a season striker. Clearly, Pep has some thinking to do over the summer. I think he might be falling asleep dreaming of those royal blue, Chelsea shirts swarming all over the pitch, suffocating City and stopping us playing our pretty patterns. Thank you, Prime.
Don't thank me, thank Guardiola.
Yeah. But as well as solving what I'm going to call the Tuchel problem, Guardiola is going to come back, isn't he, with yet another version of his style of football. So some things will stay the same, but some things will change. And one of the things that will change is there will be a striker in the formation for next season, and a striker, you would imagine, who will come in on the back of an established prolific record, whoever that striker will be. So clearly that is what is going to be sought. And I think that is the key, not so much to improving this team, but as being the cornerstone of the new team, of the new style of play, with presumably a little bit more on the goal column.
So I'm going to obviously end with you for the Champions League question. Like obviously, City went into that obviously wanting to win their first Champions League. And obviously, one of the biggest question marks overthinks it in terms of starting lineups or formations. So obviously, you didn't end up going on to win that game, and you only had one shot on target a minute. But how do you feel?
4 block shots. Thank you very much, Brian.
But like
Guardiola, don't blame me.
Yeah, but how do you feel over it now when you think back, reflect on it, like after the dust has settled now, like over that Champions League game?
As far as that game is concerned, I think, to be fair to both the team, the approach, and to the coach, you've got to look at the entire campaign, and the entire campaign is record-breaking number of wins and avoiding defeat, etc., all bar the final game. What Pep has done extremely well during the Champions League campaign is to, by the stage of the knockout stages, settle upon more or less a strongest 11 and pretty much send that 11 out every game. And then he decided to change his mind in the final. Who knows what psychological wrinkle that is about Pep that makes him do that. But the fact of the matter is, as you will readily acknowledge, we follow these people. They do great genius things. And when they do, we praise them rightly. But from time to time, the genius comes with madness too. And I think on this particular occasion, he's fallen back into the pattern of thinking that has marked previous campaigns, just when all the fans expected him to do what he's been doing through the knockout. I can't be.
I don't think Pep's a genius.
Well, we'll move on to you now, Prime, because so we'll go into Chelsea. So obviously, you're obviously coming off the back of a big Champions League win, your second one. So how's the season gone for you? So obviously, you had the bit where obviously Lampard didn't work out, and obviously there's a big thing for a lot of Chelsea fans throughout the season with Lampard in, Lampard out. And obviously he went, and obviously Tuchel came in and transformed the club. But obviously, what I'm going to ask you is does Lampard have a big role to play in your Champions League win? Because it was his players kind of thing. And obviously he. So does he get any credit, or is it all just Tuchel?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if we'd finished second in our Champions League group, we get a different run into the final, and maybe we don't make the final. Or if we finish third, obviously we don't even get to the knockout stages of the Champions League. So yeah, credit for Lampard towards that, but his in-game management and his tactical nous in big games, we would have got battered against Atletico Madrid. So in terms of, partly yes, because he did get us out of that group, but not so much because it was an easy group anyway. It's not like Man United where they had to face PSG and Bayern Leverkusen, or not Leverkusen, Leipzig.
So overall, how do you feel the overall season now you think back to it, especially how it was?
This season, it's even the great parts with Tuchel, as awesome as it is, it's like we saw the last few games in the Premier League, the fact we couldn't get over that line. That's not something I blame him per se. I blame I think it's the players. So maybe they don't have the mentality factor of in pressure situations when they're favourites. I don't know what it is. Because again, same thing last season. We're getting top four. I know we got it in the end, but it was still a scramble and a fight towards it. When in reality, we should have been comfortably in top four last season. Same with this one. But winning the Champions League, maybe that changes things. We bring in 2-3 more signings in vital areas. Maybe that changes the mentality. For next season, we can challenge for the league. We can win the league, or maybe attempt to retain the Champions League. I don't know, but yeah, I'm happy with the season. Extremely happy, especially ending it on a high like that. Playing, Atletico Madrid and Real, playing Mourinho at Spurs, playing Ancelotti. We played Pep 3 times, scored once against us. It's a season of two halves, obviously, but I'm really happy with this season and how it ended. Well, 4 times, but I mean, we beat you when it mattered.
Correction, you played us 4 times, you won 3 times, and we scored 4 against you. The first 3 of which were brilliant. Anyway.
But you don't get a medal for scoring those 4 goals. We got a medal.
So what would you say, Prime, was your season-defining match and that helped actually shape your season?
Again, it's a season of 2 halves. So for me, it's two games. The first game was because when the summer began and Chelsea fans were getting gassed of winning the league, and even though we started a bit rocky first few games, we kicked into a bit of form, beating teams that we should have beat anyway. But we kicked into form, and I think we were second, and Spurs were top by I think a point or two, and we played them. I think at White Hart Lane, I'm not sure exactly. And this was Mourinho Spurs, and they were in amazing form, and they were outperforming themselves. And we played up against them, and it was a 0-0 draw. And that game frustrated me because I know Lampard's not good enough to win the league, and like I didn't have the lofty expectations other Chelsea fans had. But that game proved me right in saying that he's not ready for what we're expecting of him and expecting from the squad, and it's not fair necessarily to put all the pressure off him. And that game itself made me so frustrated at not necessarily him or the players, but at Chelsea fans. Because if you want to be in a title race up against someone like Mourinho or Pep or Klopp, when you face them in the league, you have to beat them. You can't give them an advantage of getting a point over you, especially when they're ahead of you in the league anyway. So, yeah, there's that. But if you're looking in terms of Tuchel, Atletico Madrid first leg when we beat them 1-0, after that game, that showed me that we can face any team in Europe and beat them. I mean, in the quarterfinals, I wanted to play Bayern Munich. I wanted to play PSG because I knew we could beat those teams. You know, so and we ended up playing Porto, Real Madrid, and Man City, and you know we were able to beat those teams. There's no team in Europe I face or fear playing, and that is a big testament and credit to Tuchel because there are players in this team that I personally don't think are good enough, and we need to get rid of. But he has managed to get a spark out of them, and that's a testament to his coaching methods and what a great tactician can do.
And what's the most difficult opponent you think you faced?
Honestly, again, it's a season of two halves. So okay, people are gonna laugh. The most difficult opponent we face, in my opinion, is Man United. We played them twice with Lampard, and once with Lampard, once with Tuchel, and we got 2 points out of 6. In my opinion, I think that's the most difficult opponent we faced. We faced City, and that was all 3 games with Tuchel were a walkover. I know with Lampard we lost, but we faced, we've beaten Spurs and we've beaten Everton. You know, all the other big teams we faced to me haven't been a problem. I think it's just Man United, and I don't know what it is. Again, same thing with Ollie last season. He beat us 3 times out of the 4 we faced them. And as well, he demolished us 4-0 in the first game of the season. You know, I think a lot of credit has to be given towards Ollie. I know people don't rate him or people don't like him, and that's fair. But, well, no, actually, it's not fair. I think he's doing wonders with that Man United squad, the limitation that he has in that current squad.
Who's your player of the year from your side?
Chelsea fans, some want to give it to Silva, but he was injured for about, I think, a month or 6 weeks, so I don't think it's fair necessarily to give it to him. So a lot of people want to give it to Mason Mount, which I understand. Me personally, though, I give it to Mendy. This, especially for me, when he came in, I had massive question marks about him because I haven't watched him before at Rennes, haven't heard of this guy really, or I haven't heard of him at all actually. And when we bought him, I watched, tried like learning about as much as I could. So I was watching scouting videos and stuff, and I knew his strengths, but I also knew his weaknesses. And especially with someone like Lampard, who is not the best tactically in terms of our defense, I thought that his weaknesses would get exposed a lot, and there were times that it did. His playing out of the back is not necessarily the best, and his decision making coming off the line is something that's quite questionable. For an example of that is when we faced Everton in the league in October or November. They beat us 1-0, and it was Pickford hoofball up the field, and Calvert-Lewin won it in the air against Zuma, I think. Or no, Calvert-Lewin won it in the air, and then Zuma and Mendy made a mix-up collecting the ball, which resulted in a penalty, I think, for them. But yeah, I think he's been brilliant, and he's proven wrong. His record in the Champions League this season is phenomenal. His record in the Premier League is phenomenal, and if not for Kepa playing a few games towards the end of the season, he could have won the Golden Glove. This guy's brilliant. I still have question marks on him, I'll be honest, because all season I've been asking, is this guy or can he be world class? Does he have that world class potential? I still don't know. Again, because I haven't seen him. I haven't watched him play in previous seasons or even previous games in the past, so I have nothing to compare and judge him on. So next season is when I'm going to really look to focus in on him and critique him fairly, because if we want to kick on and challenge for the league, win the league, or say retain our Champions League, he's going to be key for us. And but for me, it's only fair to make him my player of the season, especially when I criticize him heavily.
Well, he certainly saved that Aguero penalty, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he did, but that Aguero penalty itself is quite. It's quite a soft penalty in itself, but the guy's just amazing, and the thing about him is his height is not necessarily something people mention with goalkeepers, but someone like Mendy, who I do think or Kepa, who I personally do think is a good goalkeeper, his height is a problem, and he can get beaten with long shots. An example of that is Tillemans in the FA Cup final. So it's having that height, having that presence, it helps massively. And it's, again, I don't know if this guy's world class. I have question marks, but I'm just happy he's here. And for at least the next few years, we don't have to worry about a goalkeeping issue.
And is young brother going to be Mason Mount then?
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. Young player of the year is Mason Mount.
Okay. And just to wrap up, what do you think your team needs going to the summer transfer window, challenge the title next year?
We need goals. Again, I've seen Hazard at Chelsea for 7 years, and I love the guy completely. But being over-reliant on one player to be your source of everything can be annoying, especially if Hazard gets marked out of a game or has a dip like he had for one season, and you have no one else who will really step up, or no one else you can trust to say he's going to be our match winner. He's going to take us out of sticky situations. It is very annoying. So when people focus in on Werner, I think he's been, for his first season in the Premier League, first season in a new club, especially with all the mess that's going on in the world with COVID, I think he's had a good season. Yes, his misses have been quite comical, and yeah, it's funny, but he's our top goal scorer, I think, or joint top goal scorer. He's our top assister. His runs and his movement off the ball is incredible. We saw that, a big example of that in the Champions League final, the goal he created, just based on his runs and movement. He's, I think if he kicks in and starts banging goals, Havertz kicks in next season, starts banging goals, Mason Mount chips in with more goals, Pulisic stays fit, Callum gets a run in. Do we need a striker? I don't know. Maybe we do. And I preferably want Kane because he suits our system and the players we currently have. But if we get Kane or we get a Lukaku, and that supplements our attack and just brings us an extra, 25, 30 goals next season, that's going to be massive. Do we need a centre-back? Yes. I still don't trust Christensen. I still don't fully judge Rudiger. However, he was arguably, you could say, man of the match in the Champions League final as well. But I think we do need another centre-back because Silva cannot play every game. He shouldn't have to play every game. And we saw that in the final, him coming off because of an injury, because he's been playing so many games, because we have no one else we can I could really trust as a presence, I guess, in that team. So whether it be a Varane we bring in or Jules Koundé, I don't know. Do we need another midfielder? Yes, because you see, Kante's world class, but his last 2 years he's been injury prone. Kovacic the last few months was out for an injury or in and out with an injury, and Jorginho's played too many games. And Jorginho's brilliant, but when he gets burnt out, it's a detriment to the team. So having another quality midfielder brought in, so whether it's Tchouaméni or Declan Rice or whomever, to come in, be in rotation in the team will be big for us next season, especially with so many competitions, the league, the Champions League. We have to play in the FIFA World Cup as well. So many competitions, everyone's going to get games, and Tuchel is someone who knows how to perfectly rotate the squad to a T. My big thing is, will Chelsea back him? Because I've seen us, Mourinho came back in the second season, he won the league, and then in his third season, he wanted John Stones, and he wanted Paul Pogba. And I know him and Pogba fell out at United, but that's in hindsight. At that time, we wanted Stones and Pogba to kick us forward with the team we currently had at that time. And we didn't do that. We ended up buying 2 League 2 defenders on deadline day, and everything fell apart with Mourinho. We bring in Conte in his second season. He wins the league in his first season. In his second season, he wants Alexandro. He wants Koulibaly. He wants Van Dijk, who was at Southampton at the time. And he didn't get those players. And he wanted Nainggolan as well. Didn't get those players. Things fell apart. And I'm worried the same thing could happen to Tuchel. He's such a mastermind, such a tactician, so brilliant that, again, this could be a thing where because I don't know if it's trying to save money or if it's negotiations or whatever, but just go out there and get our first choice targets. No trying to get Lukaku and we end up getting Morata, or we're trying to get Alisson and we end up getting someone like Kepa. Get our first choice targets. Get whoever he wants. It doesn't matter where the player's from. If he wants a League 2 centre-back for some reason, go out and get it for him. If he wants Harry Kane, I don't care that it's Spurs. Go out and get him. If he wants Sancho instead of a striker, go out and get him. Get the player this guy wants, because we can build something special. City do the same thing for Pep. He spent how much money in his first season on a goalkeeper, didn't work out. Brought in Ederson, spent 152 mil on 3 fullbacks. And yet he still wants to buy another fullback in the summer, probably. He spent how much money on centre backs, and he still bought another one last summer. He's probably going to spend how much money on Erling Haaland or whoever as a striker. The board at City are backing Pep because this guy is going to lead them and build a dynasty with them. We can do the same thing with Tuchel. We were supposed to do it with Mourinho twice, and we failed to do it near the end, and it fell apart. We were supposed to do it with Ancelotti, and we didn't because we failed to back him, and it fell apart. Don't do the same thing with this guy, because if he goes, I don't see many other top quality world-class managers out there that are going to want to come to Chelsea. Pep's not going to come to Chelsea. Klopp won't come to Chelsea. So who else is out there? No one.
Thank you for that. Interesting. Thank you for that, Prime. So we'll move to you, Tom. Obviously, United had probably the best season. And I'll just say this, Liverpool finished 5 points behind you, and they had less goals conceded. But how's the season gone for you? Like, we've had you before, and you said that you aren't Ollie out, but do you feel that he's the man for you? How's the season been for you?
Okay, there's 2 questions, so I'm going to answer first half first, right? So, how did the season go? I'd agree with Prime. I think United and Chelsea had very similar seasons in the sense that it's very much a season of 2 halves. We started really poorly. Like, I don't know why. Like, I'm not really sure what happened there. Like, you can blame COVID. We saw it, Liverpool, City, like a couple of teams struggled at the start. So there is justification that it could have just been the scenario that all the teams found themselves in, and the players took a while to kind of kick into gear to get going. But definitely the second half of our season has been a lot better. I think if I split it then further by competition, I think the Champions League was a massive letdown for us. I think we had it in our own hands to get out of that group, which on paper was quite a, no disrespect to any of the teams in it, but it was quite an easy group for us to get out of. And I think we fucked it. Like, I think the Leipzig game, like, it was just bad man management. It was bad decision making left, right, and center. The game before that, we lost 1-0 to, I can't even pronounce their name. That's just a bunch of farmers. Like, I can't even pronounce their name. Bejim, I can't even. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. We lost 1-0. So he got it together, like, kind of in the run up to Christmas. Kind of after the Arsenal, we lost to Arsenal 1-0. And after that game, we went on a really good run. We were pretty solid up until Sheffield United. I think we lost. Yeah, we lost to Sheffield United in January, and then we went on quite a decent run after that. The Europa League should have been the cherry on the cake. Like, second place seemed to be kind of wrapped up with a couple of games to spare, realistically. And the Europa League should have been the trophy that I've said numerous times. I felt Ollie needed a trophy just to kind of calm everybody down, just to kind of settle the ship and be like, right, like, we have a trophy in the bag, second place, we can kick on from here. I'm not Ollie out. Like, I'm not, well, it's not the time or place, but like, I think I would disagree with Prime that, like, he has done a great job considering the squad we have. Like, it's the most expensive squad ever assembled. Like, God love him. Like, you know, like he I think he makes such bad decisions in games. He's a good man manager. We're going to get into this player of the season and stuff like that, but like, the work he's done with Luke Shaw, he has turned Luke Shaw's career around. He's the best left back in England. He'll start for England in the Euros. You'd have to credit a lot of that to Ollie. However, like, some of his tactical decisions, again, Champions League final, or the Europa League final, he decides to not play the central pivot of Fred McTominay. I was joking with my mates with Pep, saying Pep's just pulled an Ollie when he decides not to play Fernandinho or Rodri. It was like, oh my God, what is Pep doing? He decides that the final is the time to go more attacking, which it's critical, or it's I can't think of the word, but it's when I'm saying something that I agree with, I can't think of the word, right? But I've wanted Ollie to go more attacking. I've wanted to see Pogba more centrally, not on the left. So then he does it in the final, and I'm like, Jesus, now is not the time to do it. Like, don't change what works for us in the biggest game of our season. And it backfired. We were really, really poor. I saw United fans, and I've been on forums where they're blaming De Gea. De Gea can't save a penalty, yada, yada. Okay, but it shouldn't have got to that. Like, it's not his fault. Okay, should he have saved some of them pens? Yeah, of course he should. But I'd flip it back on Ollie to be like, you know he can't save pens. So just fucking change the keeper. Bring on Henderson. Do a Van Gaal. Like, do something. It's not De Gea's fault that he didn't save any pens. I don't blame him. But it shouldn't have got to pens anyway. All that being said, season, yeah. Like, if this is a show that we're doing last August, and you ask me, I'll give you second place in the Premier League, I would have snapped your hand off. So, like, I can't be, you know, like, I can't say it's not a good season. I think next season is it's a defining season for Ollie. I can see it going one or two ways. We start the season quite well. First, we get transfers in. We start the season quite well. He'll last the season. If we start the season poorly, I can see him sacked at Christmas. And it's going one of two ways. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground. I don't, like, especially if he gets back this summer. I think he was very close. November international break. Like, there's a couple of journalists, UK journalists, who are really, really close to United. They were all talking about Poch back last November. We went on an international break. We beat Everton. Then we went on an international break. And then we went on a great run. And that saved his job. So, like, I don't buy the squad shit. Like, Ollie's doing such a great job. Prime, actually, to throw one back to you, you were asked, you know, if Tuchel wasn't supported, say, you know, if the board didn't give him his players and he left, you were like, there's not many managers. What about Ollie? Would you take Ollie at Chelsea?
Ollie's not a world class manager, no. But also, I think people need to realize sometimes certain managers just fit certain clubs. So, for example, Mourinho just fits at Chelsea perfectly, but I think Mourinho did a great job at United, but he just didn't fit that club. The same way he didn't fit Spurs. Klopp perfectly fits Liverpool. Ferguson obviously perfectly fits United, same way as Wenger fits Arsenal. I think they're just some manager just perfectly suit certain clubs. Tuchel suits Chelsea, so I think. But I do like Ollie. Look. There are deficiencies in that United squad, and also you look at the board. Like, you can talk about all the money spent, and I agree with that. But just because you're spending money doesn't mean you're spending it wisely. You spend 50 mil on Fred, who is not good. You spend, I think it was 35 mil on Lindelof, who is not that good. You know, you don't have a right winger really. You're playing Greenwood out there, who's a kid and he's also a striker. You know, you don't have I know Cavani's good, but he's old, so you don't have a central striker. You know, like a quality, top class, world class central striker. You're having to play Rashford too many times because you don't have backup.
But we do. No, this is the thing. Like, I think if you look at Ollie signed a lot of squad players, right? So he signed Dan James, signed Donny van de Beek, doesn't play them. Plays Dan James probably. Actually, he definitely plays Dan James more. Donny doesn't get a look in. Like, and again, you can read whatever. Like, Ollie didn't want him. Like, the board signed him or whatever, right? I don't know. I don't believe it because I read comments from Ollie talking about how he rang him to convince him to join. But again, I'd flip all of this back to Ollie to be like, you have a squad, you just don't use it. He picks the same players pretty much consistently. Rashford's injured because Ollie keeps playing him. The trust thing can come in to say, oh, well, he clearly doesn't trust his bench or whatever. But they're his players. And again, on the manager piece, right? Totally valid points about like the managers suiting clubs. Like, I definitely do think there is something in that. So that's a fair point. However, the managers that you mentioned coming in, so Mourinho coming into Chelsea originally, Klopp coming into Liverpool, Fergie coming into United at the time, there was a common theme throughout all of their careers. They were all winners. They were all already winners by the time they came to those big clubs. So Klopp had won the Bundesliga before he came to Chelsea, before he came to Liverpool. Jose won the Champions League and league titles at Porto. Fergie won a European Cup at Aberdeen and league title. Like, they all were already managing at a really high level to come in to take a really high profile job.
True.
I fear that Ollie is learning on the job, and time's going to run out unless he gets something. And that's why I was like, he needed that trophy to kind of, okay, I've now won something, kick on.
I don't think, okay, for Fergie, I'm way too young for that, so I can't really speak when he first came. But Klopp, there were question marks on him massively when he came.
When he came to Liverpool?
Came as well. I know he just won the Champions League with Porto and everything, but him coming in as this like young, cocky, arrogant manager, I'm not saying there were question marks per se, but when he came in and said that of basically the only quality manager in this league is Ferguson because he's the only one to win a European Cup and stuff, you know, like that arrogance and cockiness, like, and Mourinho being so young and inexperienced, being so young, like, you can't say there weren't some sort of question marks about him. I think Ollie, is he a world-class manager? No. Can he win Man United the league?
No.
I can't say no for a definite. Like, he needs to be given what he's done this season. I know you can talk about the Champions League per se, but again, the same way I spoke about Chelsea being somewhat comfortable for top four and our players bottling it near the end, I think you need to look at your players not being able to step up and be counted. And sometimes a manager can only do so much.
Yes, but like, I would argue that, like, again, once the players, that old cliche of once the players cross the white line, it's kind of on the players now. But Ollie sometimes shoots himself in the foot. Like, again, the not substituting Fred when he was on a yellow against PSG, like my son is 1.5 and he would have known, Jesus, I'd take Fred off here.
Yeah.
The Leipzig game goes to 5 at the back. There's just tactical things which I'm okay if someone's going to learn on the job. I'm kind of okay. But I think he does things to shoot himself in the foot. And again, I stress, like, I'm not flying a plane saying Ollie out, but I'm a realist to go, if he gets sacked at Christmas, I'm not going to be that sad.
But
like, I'll kind of be like, it's deserved.
But when you say Fred getting sent off, I've seen players be on yellow cards and still survive the game. You're not supposed, just because you're on yellow doesn't automatically mean you're getting sent off. You can't blame Ollie for that.
Well, so in that game, Fred had about three tackles on a yellow where the ref was like, last warning, this is your last warning. Any manager takes that player off.
Yes, yeah, I do agree and true, and I can't remember that game per se, so I would have to know who else was on your bench to come into that position. But you have to look at the player and say, you're on a yellow card. Why are you continuously making fouls that's going to give you a second yellow and get you sent off? I think you also have to look at the player for that as well. So
yeah,
Ollie does have his fair share of blame this season. I agree. I'm not even like people when I talk. People misconstrue and think that I think he's perfect or everything. I don't. He's not perfect. I think he's a very good manager. I think people hype up about Poch and about Rodgers at Leicester. I think Ollie's just as good as them.
Okay, so
interesting. I don't know.
Just gonna wrangle it back in. What was your stand-up match, Tom? We just end up talking about Ollie all night.
Stand-up game. I don't know why. Maybe I do know why. Okay, the Southampton game where we were 2-0 down at halftime, we came back and won 3-2. And Cavani scored 2, but he scored like in the 91st minute or something, 92nd minute. That to me was a massive game for a couple of reasons, right? One, because we'd got smashed by Spurs like a few weeks beforehand. Like, we weren't in a great run of form. Cavani was kind of stop-start, hadn't really got into stride. And it was like his arrival at our team. Like, it just felt like he came on to give us a focal point up front, and the whole game changed. Also, what team and fan doesn't love a 92nd minute winner? Like, it was a nice game. It also gave us a bit of fighting spirit that we probably hadn't seen up to that point in the season with the players. And it's something that then continued on throughout the season. Numerous matches we've scored late on, and there was that old feeling of like, United are never out until the final whistle goes and so on. And that seemed to be the catalyst game for that this season for me. So that's probably my most memorable match, or at least a turning point of the season, if for want of a better word.
Okay. And who's your most difficult opponent you faced this season?
I'm going to agree with Prime. Chelsea, I think the 2 Chelsea games were really, really difficult. And realistically, I think if we're both honest, could have went either way. There was one game, we both dominated our home match. So when we had Chelsea at home, I think we were on top, and possession, I don't know about possession, but I think we definitely had more shots and more chances. The flip of that, when we played them at Stamford Bridge, I think they dominated us, and we had, I think, a very close chance, but like that, again, it could have went either way. So that was probably our most difficult game. I'm going to throw a weird one out here though and say Sheffield United this season, for what they are on paper, we made very hard work of both of those games. So we lost, obviously, after Christmas, we lost them, and then 2-1, I think. Before Christmas, we beat them 3-2, and it was fucking hard game. Dave McGoldrick, I'm Irish. Dave McGoldrick doesn't score against anybody. He scored 2 against us. We just made it a very difficult game, and they played really well. And if you look at them, how the league finished and everything, they were just cannon fodder, and they gave us the 2 really hard games. I'll go with Chelsea just because it is what it is. But as a dark horse, the 2 Sheffield United games were tough.
And who do you think is your player of the season? You think back to the season.
I should say Bruno. I'm going to say Luke Shaw. It should be Bruno Fernandes for everything he's done. He carries us in games, and whatever about him going missing in big games, Holmes, we've had a chat about this on your show about this, and I get it. Like, I get it, right? But he has been phenomenal. He's been a catalyst since the day he walked into the club. However, Luke Shaw this season, I didn't think Luke Shaw had the performances that he's had this season in his locker anymore. Give a credit to Ollie, give it to Alex Telles coming in and kicking up the hole because now he has competition. I don't know, but I don't care. He has been amazing for us down the left. And again, for England, I'm not English, but like he'll do. I think it's a good option for you guys this summer is to have a player like Luke Shaw back in the team, and the way he's playing, he's obviously trimmed down. He's got more focused. I don't know. He's been phenomenal. As I said, I didn't think he had it in the locker anymore. So delighted to see him come back to that kind of form.
Yeah, he has done very well this year. Who's been your young player of the year?
Mason Greenwood. I think he's had a really up and down season. I think the stuff with England again at the start of the season, him and Foden getting into a bit of trouble. For two young players, to be fair, Foden came back amazingly well from a 2, but I think that can be really tough for two young players to have to deal with and then be in the limelight at two of the biggest, not the two biggest, but two of the biggest clubs in England. So for me, Mason Greenwood, it took him a lot longer to find his form and come back into it. Again, you could argue Ollie managed that situation quite well. But the form Mason Greenwood showed throughout the kind of second half of the season, he's very unfortunate to be injured and not going to the Euros, because I think he could have exploded at the Euros. But I think I'd give him my young player of the year.
Just going with the chat. Good to see you, Cedric. And going into the summer, what do you think your club needs to take you to the next level?
I think it's what we've needed for 2 or 3 years now. I think we still need a centre-back. We're linked to all the centre-backs Chelsea are linked to, which is really annoying, because I think if it comes into a transfer battle, Chelsea win that every day of the week, because we've got the most inept transfer fucking board in the world. But we definitely need a centre-back. I would take anyone from Varane, Jules Koundé. I'd take Badiashile off Monaco. I'd take anybody who is a good partner for Maguire, someone who's fast. We just need someone who's fast, because Lindelof is just cement. So a centre-back to partner Maguire. We need a CDM. I don't like the Fred McTominay roles, the two that they play. We play two holding midfielders because neither of them can actually do the job that well. McTominay is a good player. I do like him as a squad player. He's not a defensive midfielder, but we're playing two of them there because we don't have one to play it. If Matic was 10 years younger, maybe he could do the job. So I think we do need a CDM. Again, sorry, Prime, but I would love Declan Rice also. I don't see us winning that race, to be honest, but I would like him as a player to come in. But again, I would take anyone, any specialist CDM to come into United, I will take. I don't care who it is. And then we need a right winger. And I think Sancho does happen. I actually do think it happens this year. I take him. Mason Greenwood isn't a right winger. He should be up front. He should be learning off Cavani. So I'd like to see Sancho. A right winger, I think it'll be Sancho. I think I have a sneaking suspicion we'll sign a backup right back as well. Kieran Trippier is being mentioned a lot. So I think we might sign a backup right back because we don't have one. But the essential positions for us are centre back, CDM, right wing. I'm happy not signing a striker this season because Cavani, we've signed him up for one more year. Give him another year. Greenwood off the bench. Next season, that's when we sign a headline striker.
Thanks for that, Tom. Good overview of Man United there. Last but not least, Liam. So we'll go on to Liverpool now. Obviously, we came into this season after winning the league, and it ended up nearly being a nightmare season. But how's the season gone for you when you think back to all the injuries, the VAR decisions?
I'm sure you sympathise in the same way. It's a season that's very difficult to describe. I guess when we started off after 13 games, although as everyone else has aired, it's been a very weird season. But at the start of things, 13 games in, we were top at Christmas. Again, you think, here we go, we're on for another title challenge, which at that stage it did look like. And then after Christmas, everything collapsed. We couldn't buy a win at home. We were getting beaten by relegation fodder, really. Teams that didn't look like doing anything against other teams, but when it came against us, we were giving them points again. Then came the dismantling against City as well. It just it fell apart, really. And then when you're 8th with 10 games to go, you're starting to prepare for the new European Conference League, and you're thinking, well, this should be great fun next season. We're going to have Thiago, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk playing in the Europa Conference League. But again, Klopp does what he does best, gets them going. We found a stable partnership at the back. And again, in the last 10 games, I think we took the most points out of our last 11 games, 10 games. Maybe that's wrong, but something like that. We're top of the form table in a period of games anyway. And we got in, and we didn't just finish 4th, we finished 3rd. So a mixed season is probably the way to go around it. But in terms of where we were and where things look like going, I'm rather happy with the ending. But again, it's a shame with injuries and other circumstances, like you mentioned earlier, that we weren't able to challenge for the title.
And what do you think was our season-defining match that really changed our season for you?
I think probably when I sort of believed that we were going to get top 4, or that we could put a run of games together, was, well, there's 2 really in succession. The 4-2 against Manchester United, it just seemed, it's been a long time since we went to Old Trafford and put up a performance, and that was a performance. There were times where we were a bit shaky defensively, but when you've got rather an experienced centre-back partnership, that's understandable against the attacking talent that United have got. But for us to be able to do that, Firmino scoring as well, again, the reminiscence of Salah's goal as well in the dying embers, like the 2-0 the season before, although it's in a different stadium, but it just had that feel about it where you thought, this is it. This is a momentum builder. We can go into the next few games and put on a run of results. And then obviously Alisson Becker's header from the corner against West Brom just sort of defines the season in general, about how weird it's been for us. So I'd probably say a mix-up between those 2 games, really.
Yeah, I think the Man United game was the one for me. That kind of put us on the map in terms of top 4. So yeah, I'd agree with you there. And what do you think was our difficult opponent we faced this season?
We're going off scoreline, probably Aston Villa. I think we were all thinking, what on earth is happening? I mean, at that point in time, it's not like we had our inexperienced centre-back partnership or midfielders playing there, but people forget Van Dijk actually played in that match. So again, I think we were all thinking, what on earth's going on here? But in terms of across the season, I always felt going into the games against Leeds, it could always go 1 or 2 ways. I think we saw on the opening day of the season, the 4-3 match, like the way they came onto the scene, like some of the goals they were scoring. Jack Harrison's one comes to mind, a ball over from Phillips. He just brings it ball down, cuts inside and places it in the bottom corner. They were games where they always gave us a run for his money. And again, I suppose the second game was in the aftermath of all the European Super League, but they didn't let that affect them, and they still got a point from us. So I think Leeds were a difficult opponent. Again, in terms of relegation teams, teams at the bottom end of the table, we haven't performed best. But again, when you look at our form against teams at the top of the league, it's rather good. So I don't know, really mixed season, but based on the fact we got beat 7-2, I'd probably go Aston Villa.
I'm just going to go in the chat. Cedric says, without Alisson's goal and Naldini, I think he's talking about Phillips. No top 3 for us. Good to see Ravi. So going back to my question for you, like, who do you think was our player of the year?
I think it's Mo Salah. I think if you take away his 22 goals, we're up shit creek without a paddle, really. It's we'd have struggled massively without him. And again, he continues season after season. 4 seasons in, he's looking like a great one-season wonder. So, yeah, I don't think you can really look too much further than Mo Salah. His goals have been important for us this season, and when the other two of the front three have rather dropped off, although, again, I think people exaggerate how bad Mane's season's actually been, but in terms of they've not been at the level that we know they can be at, I think Salah's maintained his level and if not performed better at times because there's been a bit more of an emphasis on him to be the man that can drag us through games. But yeah, I'd probably say Salah. I don't think there's much of a conversation. Maybe honourable mentions of Fabinho. When he's been in midfield, we look excellent. When he's not been in midfield, we look lost without him. I think Robertson's been solid as well this season, but I'd give it to Salah.
And who's been your young player of the year?
I mean, considering the fact that people were saying he's been terrible this season, he had an awful spell. I think looking at his numbers, most chances created from a defender, most assists for a defender, it's got to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. Curtis Jones has done well this season coming in, but even still, especially in this last 7 or 8 games, Trent has found that level again, and it's been a decisive factor. His goal against Aston Villa, when you talk about pinnacle moments and the dying embers from the edge of the area, that's another example as well. So, despite the fact there's been performances, Real Madrid comes to mind, obviously, where he's probably been at fault defensively and he did have a bad spell, but young players do have bad spells. Confidence is a big thing when you're young coming through. Obviously, he's been in the first team for a while now, but this is the first real bad spell he's had. But taking away that spell, his levels have still been good enough. And despite he's been underperforming as one of the worst players in our team this season, he's still been better in an attacking output than the rest of the fullbacks in the league. Luke Shaw's up there with him. It's very competitive between those two. But again, Luke Shaw's having the best season of his career and Trent's having the worst. And I think that shows you how good Trent Alexander actually is. So I don't think there's much of an argument other than Trent. Shout out to maybe Jones coming in, developing in. Reece Williams was good at the back end of the season when he was relied upon. But I think you can't really look too much further than Trent, to be honest.
Everyone watching, do smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get this show out to more people and grow the channel. Ravi's got a quick question for you here. Liam, would you start Konate over Gomez if both are fit?
Oh, I think Konate is excellent. I've for my writing stuff I do on the side of podcasts and things, I've written a couple of articles about him recently, and his tactical profile in terms of being able to win things in the air. He's one of the best dribblers for defenders in Europe. Like, his numbers in terms of dribbling are unbeaten in Europe, which is what we got from Matip, and we always talked about that being a big thing from Matip, those runs from defence to get into advanced positions and, I don't know, play balls into the penalty area, etc. Try find our forward line. So I think that's definitely important in transition. People forget how good Gomez has actually been for Liverpool. Again, he's been rather consistent, unlucky with injuries, I must say. Whenever he seems to get injured, it always seems to be serious. But I think we need to give Konate time. He's another one that's struggled with injuries, especially over the last 2 seasons. He had one season where he played pretty much every game, cemented himself as one of the standout young defenders in Europe. The last 2 seasons, it's rather been a bit mixed in terms of him being able to get a progressive run of games because he's had long periods out with injuries. He seems to have put that behind him in the last probably 2 or 3 months. But again, we know injuries can recur, etc. So I wouldn't worry too much about his injuries. But based on the fact that they're both going to the season on a fresh page, I'd probably stick with Gomez because we've seen him, we know what he's about. But again, I'd be excited about Konate. He looks excellent, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe around Christmas time the partnerships Konate and Van Dijk.
I think Liverpool next season, you guys are going to be in for such a culture shock. Honestly, you're relying a lot on the whole Van Dijk being back. He's not going to come back the same defender. Gomez is injury prone. Konate, though he's good, he's also injury prone. There's a reason why Bayern Munich bought Upamecano instead, who maybe is not as good, but at least he's reliable and fits consistently.
I think the one thing to say about the fact that Van Dijk's not going to come back and be the same, I think Tom might be able to say Rio struggled with an injury, came back, wasn't the same, but again, then came back and was good. So I wouldn't say that top-level defenders getting injured is the end of the world and saying, oh, he's had a knee injury, he's not going to be able to come back. I think we look at how good Van Dijk is physically, mentally. Again, in terms, you don't lose the ability to play on the ball and read the game. That's a mental thing, not a physical thing. So again, we're going to have to give him time to get back in. But to say that he's not going to be able to come back and play to the same level, I think that's rather premature and
he was
short-minded.
He was untouchable as the best defender on the planet. He's not going to come back and be untouchable. He's not going to have this era of.
But what's making you say that he can't come back and be untouchable? We haven't actually seen him play a game of football since he got injured.
Because of the injury. Because of the
He's had one injury. He's had one injury
that he had, and two, are you guys not expecting a title challenge next season? And again, him being there, you also have Gomez, who is injury prone, and Konate is also injury prone. Konate is not a smart signing. He's quality, but the fact that he's injury prone, along with Gomez,
I don't know how you can't say Konate.
You don't know what Van Dijk is like. I don't think it's the smartest signing, in my opinion.
Name a smart signing that's out there available for £34 million.
We have to wait and see that because
spend a bit more than on a better centre back.
Again, what's to say we're able to spend a bit more on a better centre back? There isn't too many better than Konate available.
Okay, Jules Koundé.
Plus
£78 million.
That is worth it for someone who's fit and reliable.
Also, has history with injuries.
I think just on Virgil's injury, right? So I also do think that Virgil will come back a different player. However, he'll just adapt his game. Like I think Virgil is Rolls Royce. I'm not saying he won't come back as good. I think he'll adapt his game. So I think with a knee injury, you're probably looking at maybe like.
I think Tom's gone there. What I will say is that on Konate, to answer Prime's thing, if you look at his injury record, he had one big injury, but he came back too quickly and got injured again. He's not injury prone. Injury prone is like where you've got loads of hamstring injuries and stuff. He had one big impact injury. So he's not really injury prone. If you look at transfer market, they cover in the summer holiday periods part of the sickness. We actually look at it, he's not missed that many games. You actually look at the amount of games he's missed. So
it was a 296-day period he missed, and again that came along with lockdowns and pre-seasons. So
I'll say that. But moving on, before we otherwise be here debating all night over, if Van Dijk's going to come back fit or Konate and stuff. Just moving on, just quickly ask you, Liam, going into the summer, what do you feel is Liverpool's need in terms of transfer to take the team to the next level?
I don't think we're really too many players away. I think if you look at the team we've had, obviously injuries have not helped this season. If you get Van Dijk back to the level which I do believe he can come back to, I don't think obviously injuries do affect things, but it's his first real injury at Liverpool, a serious one, yes, but I think he's going to be able to come back to the level because we know how strong he is mentally, and again, his ability to play football's probably, again, the best in Europe in terms of centre-backs. So I think we've got a good spine, but Gini Wijnaldum's left, and at the moment, that's probably the biggest emphasis on terms of replacing. I think we discussed this, Holmes, on another Liverpool podcast. We went into a bit of a depth about it. We spoke about Aouar, Neuhaus, those sorts of players, Renato Sanchez, other options. I don't know who we'd go for specifically. Tielemans has been linked as well. I like Tielemans, he's a good player, but I don't know. I think a midfielder's necessary. I'd like us to go for someone like Aouar or Sanchez, someone who's a progressive passer, good in the final third, a bit more a bit more attacking output. But again, Gini's been really good at kind of being reserved and filling in for spaces when you've got Robbo going forward, and he'll cut back into that space in behind and not really leave. Again, Van Dijk can cover that area as well because we know how good his spatial awareness is. But again, you want someone there to cover that space. So I think a midfielder who can do it all. Again, there's not many of those about, but is needed. And then I'd like to see a young forward that can bleed in to the squad. Added, not someone we're going to necessarily expect 20 goals from in the first season, but someone who can add with, 10, 11 goals, being rotated in the squad. And then as we see Sadio, Mo and Bobby getting to an age now, 28, 29, no one's to say they can't go on and do it till 33, 34, like a Suarez, obviously Messi, Ronaldo, doing it well beyond the age that they are now. But get a young forward in who can contribute, but again, can plan for the future as well. Someone like a Daniel Marlon or a Dusan Vlahovic, someone that's scoring goals consistently now and is happy to come to a bigger team and wait for the chance and really make an impact in the seasons to come, but also make a small impact when they come in. So I'd say a forward and a midfielder, and obviously we've got the centre-back, and I think Canate, his profile fits Liverpool like a glove. So I think we've got an excellent piece of business there. Maybe a backup right back. Maybe Nico Williams deserves a chance to go out on loan, but again, backup goalkeeper as well with Adrian, but I don't think they're really pressing issues, to be quite honest.
Do you think Liverpool sign a forward this summer? Like, I know you're saying like you need one, or like you'd like to. Do you think you do?
I don't think it's a necessity to sign a forward. I think we should sign a forward, and I think we will sign a forward. Origi's available. I think we know Origi's going to go. What he did in Champions League, last-minute winners against Everton and Newcastle. We love him for that. He'll always be a cool hero. So Origi's going to go. I think it's likely Shaqiri leaves as well. And then you've got Wilson out on loan. I think he'll go as well. So I think you're getting rid of two spaces at the club now. Minamino's to come back in as well, whether he goes out on loan again, although apparently Leipzig are interested. So maybe something happens there. But you've got three spaces really behind the front three to really fill. I think Jota's taken up one of those. I think you guys will agree with me. Jota's been great for us when he's been fit, struggled with injuries, but he's been a really good sign for us with what we've spent.
So that was the reason for my question, was because next season I'm trying to think of you, like you've got Salah, Mane, and Jota.
Yeah,
I suppose you don't, like, one has to not start, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean,
if Bobby
we've seen
plays,
them
or you
start
have a new
together.
striker.
We've seen them start together, but then you sacrifice Firmino, and I think towards the end of the season, Firmino's been not at his level. Obviously, we know we'd want to see more goals from him, but again, he does offer a lot more to the team than just goals. But he's been back up there with improved performances towards the back end of the season. The one thing I would say is why I don't say we need to go out and sign a Harry Kane or a Erling Haaland or even someone like an Andre Silva, who scored plenty of goals this season in the Bundesliga, is that by bringing someone in that isn't going to expect to really play 38 games a season, you give them the opportunity to experience what it feels like to play for a club like Liverpool, challenge on more than one front for trophies, play at a top level, give them that experience, and then say 2 or 3 years down the line when I think one of Salah, Mane or Firmino is likely to leave, maybe in the next season or two, who knows. But you've got someone as well as Jota to fall back on that's 2 years further down the line, knows where the back of the net is, and is an out-and-out striker. Something Liverpool don't have is an out-and-out striker. I don't think we need wide players. I think we've got enough of those. I think getting someone who can find the back of the net, is successful with it, and isn't going to cost us an arm and a leg, really. I don't see us spending more than 40, 35 million on this sort of player. But someone we know has got a bright future ahead of them and can play, maybe on the left, maybe on the right, but is primarily a striker.
Just everyone watching, do make sure you smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't done already. Helps us get the show out to more people and grow the channel. So just going to go quickly around you guys before we wrap up. I'm just going to ask you each of you to give your name in the hat for each of these awards before we wrap up. So we'll start with you since we're on you, Liam. Who wins your PFA Player of the Year for the season?
PFA Player of the Season. Ooh, that's a difficult one, to be honest. I think your candidates Ruben Diaz, although when people talk about his transformational impact, I think that's rather extended. I think he's a good centre-back who has improved City's backline, but I don't think the improvement's been as drastic as the comparisons that we're getting to Van Dijk, but I think he's definitely in the conversation. Fernandes has probably got to be in the conversation. But for me, I'd probably give it to Harry Kane based on just his numbers, really. Goals, assists, he's up there at the top with both, so I'd probably say Harry Kane.
Tim?
I hear what's been said about Diaz. I mean, Diaz is clearly leading the line. I think there is a strong argument that you should have the runaway champions, that there should be a representative from the champions because of that. There were so many candidates that you could identify apart from Diaz, but I think Diaz just comes forward as an obvious single point of agreement. You know, you could be talking about Foden, you could be talking about Gundogan, you could be talking about De Bruyne, but I think ultimately, as a representative of City, it has to be Diaz. I mean, we can agree to disagree about whether or not, you know, he isn't a second Virgil van Dijk. He's the first Ruben Diaz. So just, you know, this is his debut season. So just watch to see where he goes from here. I hear the point about Fernandes. I mean, obviously, there tends to be a representative in the Player of the Year awards who scores lots of penalties. So credit to him for that. And then, of course, there's Harry Kane. I'm not so sure that Player of the Year really ought to be just about the stats. So I understand the argument, but statistics are one thing. But in the final analysis, you've got to look at something a bit more in the round. Also, I think that there's a tradition now that's being busted about attacking players always winning the Player of the Year award. So I think we're starting, and we can thank Virgil for that, because Virgil was the one that stopped the trend towards always constantly goal merchants. Instead of the finer arts of defending. So in the final analysis, I was tossing up a little bit with the great performance in the match on Saturday, whether or not a Chelsea player ought to be mentioned. Obviously, it's a Premier League Team of the Year. I was thinking of suggesting Kante from Chelsea, but I'm alarmed to discover that Prime doesn't even mention Kante in his Player of the Season discussion. I mean, he pretty much mentioned everybody else in the squad in the 3.5 hours we're not going to get back from Prime's rant. But no, I think in the end it's got to be Diaz for me.
Tom, who's your Player of the Season?
Yeah, so I'll firstly defend Bruno. Obviously, he scores pens, but like he does everything else as well. Harry Kane scores pens. Mo Salah scores pens. Usually, the top goal scorers are penalty takers. It's how it works. So that's just part of his job. And isn't he great for scoring all the penalties? Because, you know, you can miss them too. I'm now going to say, I think Ruben Diaz has been brilliant. Like, I think he's filled a Vincent Kompany shaped hole that Man City have had since he left. And like Kompany, and it pains me to say this, I still have Rio and Vidic ahead of him, but like he was one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. And I think for the first time now, Pep has somebody who he's an absolute rock. He's brilliant. He's better than Virgil debate on a Liverpool channel. I'm smart enough to not go down that route. But this season, he has been brilliant. I'm going to throw a little left field and say, I thought Jack Grealish was amazing this season. Like, I really, really think for a Villa team who nearly got relegated last season, he has been phenomenal. He's put himself in a shop window. He'll more than likely go to a really big, top 4, top 6 team in the summer. He'll go away with England. It's not easy for a player playing for Villa to stand out and be nominated. Like, I think he has been excellent. I think De Bruyne, like, it's probably just cliche to say De Bruyne is brilliant. He is. We all know he is. But for me, I'd give it to Diaz simply because I'm a nostalgic old bastard and I do love a good centre-back. So I'd give it to him.
Prime, what about you? Who's your player of the season? He's not there. We'll come back to Prime if he's not there.
I think Prime would have said Diaz, definitely. I think Prime would definitely have said Diaz. I get the sense he would have said Diaz anyway.
Can I just add one thing about Ruben Diaz?
Yeah.
The one thing I get is one thing that sticks in my mind is I can't remember the performance, but he made 9 blocks in one game. I'm not taking away from him being a great defender. He is a great defender. The one thing that irritates me is that people talk about the transformational impact that he's made to Man City. I think credit for what's been changed in Man City doesn't need to be transformed towards Ruben Diaz. I think that needs to be transformed towards Pep Guardiola. I think City are a lot more conservative now and a lot more balanced in terms of being able to win games 2-1, 2-0, I don't know, by a goal or two, whereas before we'd always see City put 6 or 7 past teams and laud them for this excellent style of football. And I think you mentioned, Tim, about the different ways that Pep set up City. And I think this is a different way, and I think it's worked to perfection. The one thing I would say is, in terms of being a transformational impact, are we talking about with the way City play, or are we talking about the defensive numbers, the goals you've not been conceding, or the defensive performances? I don't understand where the word transformative comes from. He's a leader. He reads the game well. He clears the ball. He blocks. Not too much on tackles, but again, players at teams like City where they've got the ball most of the time aren't going to be making lots of tackles. But I don't understand where the whole transformative impact comes from. City haven't improved that much defensively this season.
Okay. Well, what I would say is a little bit of everything that you've mentioned. So, for example, I think the ref gave a foul for an absolutely brilliant tackle on Harry Kane in the Carabao Cup final. This is the kind of almost, crouching tiger, hidden dragon type challenge that we love to see as fans. It's such a shame he did that challenge in front of a 10% full stadium. Fortunately, I was able to get a ticket to go to the Carabao Cup final. But just so tackles, on the rare occasions when tackles need to be made, he is absolutely a brilliant exponent. And okay, he did give a penalty away the other day with an otherwise brilliant slide challenge, but tackling is in his locker. Blocks, yes, taking it on the face. But how players, I suppose the classic one would be John Terry of old. Players find themselves in a situation where a ball is coming towards literally their nose, their face, their eye, their cheekbone at however many miles an hour. And instead of doing the entirely natural human thing of flinching away, you put your face further in the way of the ball. But one of the things that we've learnt about Diaz, I think, in the empty stadiums this season is that we have always had very quiet centre-backs in the absence of company. Diaz is an organiser. He is a talker. He is a shouter. He is on one infamous occasion when Oleg Zinchenko was being the draft excluder in the wall and he wasn't hearing Edison telling him to shuffle along a couple of inches in a particular direction, he picks him up by the scruff of the neck and drags him along the ground. That's the kind of guy Ruben Diaz is. And he's a young man at the moment, and we've many more years of that to look forward to. So he's kind of all of the above. And he's one of these people who just sort of emits a sense of leadership and almost menace, I think. I think he's menacing towards his teammate. You'd better be up at my level. You've got that sort of lead by example thing as well. So I think he does a lot of everything very well. And there's an element, I'd say, of a comparison with Virgil van Dijk. There's a sort of a legend of Diaz. He's had his first season. We'll see, he could falter, but there is a legend that builds up both amongst your teammates and your fans, but also amongst your opponents. That statistic that was often mangled, I don't think it was true in the end, but the statistic about Van Dijk never being dribbled past, to a certain extent, if you're dribbling forward and you're playing against Van Dijk, you might just have that in the back of your head thinking, I won't be able to dribble past him. And then he tackles you, and then you think, no one ever dribbles. There's that sort of element of the myth of Diaz. And I agree with you, it might be a little overstated, but, good PR is...
I rate Diaz highly. I think he's brilliant. But here's the thing with City centre-backs lately. For example, you bought John Stones, who I love. I loved him at Everton. I wanted him at Chelsea. But he had, I think, a great first season, was it? And he faltered away. When you guys bought Laporte, there was all this hype about him being the best center, or the second best center back in the league, and him being world class, which I massively disagree with. And he faltered away. Do you think the same thing could happen with Diaz, where he has sort of a stumble in the second season?
Well, a wise man once told me that the best way of ending any football debate was to say, we'll see. And you can't be wrong by saying, we'll see. That said, I think that there is a very strong likelihood that Diaz is going to have a sequence of good seasons. He might get injured, of course he might. He might pick up some sort of silly suspension or whatever the heck, and he might lose form. He is, after all, although he feels like everybody's granddad, he is, in fact, a young player still qualifies for the young player category, I think. So I take your point. No one can predict the future with accuracy, but it wouldn't surprise me if not only in one season's time, but maybe in 5 or 6 seasons' time, we're actually in a position to say, well, look at the evidence that shows how good Diaz is. So we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't bottle it on the Champions League final again. But
So probably we're just asking, who's your team this player of the season?
In general, in the Premier League,
Premier League, yeah, player of the season.
Harry Kane, no shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think I agree with the guy saying Harry Kane.
Yeah, he's
so
been unplayable. I think he's been, in my opinion, he's been the best player in the world. He's been unplayable.
Yeah, I think I agree, echo that. He has been amazing this season. Who's everyone's young player of the year? We'll start with you, Prime.
What is the cutoff for a young player? 23, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll say, yeah, 23 is a fair enough age. No one over that.
I don't know. I think the obvious shout it would be Diaz, or people would say Foden or Mount. I go Rashford. I think when you look at his goal contributions and his outputs, it's up there with some of the best in the world. And especially when he plays in a team where, you know, the manager is not that great. You know, I think you have to commend what he's been able to do.
So you're going for him?
Yeah.
Liam, who's your young player of the year?
Phil Foden. I don't think I need to talk about it so much. I mean, Tim mentioned his goal against Liverpool. I just think that typifies him as a player, and I think the fact he's doing that at the age he is, and the fact we've got 10, 12, maybe even 15 years of him continuing to do that is quite frightening. So, yeah, I think what he's producing at this age is beyond his years. And again, to really force your way into that City team with some of the midfield talent they've had. Obviously, Silva's left, so there was a hole there to fill, but I think he's filled that hole excellently, and he's been playing wide as well. So again, someone who's versatile, available to play those positions, goal scorer, creative, good dribbler. I don't think I'd look much further than Phil Foden.
By you, Tim, who's your young player of the year?
There are things that we have missed about not being crowds in stadia. One of the things that we've missed, of course, you know, when the goal hits the back of the net, obviously, you cheer a big challenge. But one of the slightly less prominent things is when an entire crowd watches a player control the ball or do a little pirouette or beat a player with skill or sell a dummy, and the crowd gasps. And sometimes you'll even get a ripple of applause just for the touch. Phil Foden, as well as all the goals, all of the running, etc., the great balance, all the promise of the future. Phil Foden has put touches on balls during the course of this season and previous seasons, but this season in particular, that would have made a packed stadium gasp in admiration. And really, you need to say no more than that. Very gracious words from Liam and others about Philip Walter Foden, a lad from Stockport, just like myself, just wowing on the biggest stage of all. How rude of Mr. Rudiger to get his foot in the way of what would have been a wonderful goal in the Champions League final. But, you know, plenty more seasons for Phil Foden to achieve all of the great glittering prizes of football. But yes, Phil Foden, of course.
And last but not least, what about you, Tom? Who's your young player of the year?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, Phil Foden for me, for all the reasons stated above, and it hurts. Like Rashford, Prime, I think made a good case for Rashford. I think my only thing with Rashford is that he's played a lot of this season with injury, especially the second half. His form just tailed off so poorly towards the end of the season. But again, I do think that's injury related and just being overplayed. Phil Foden has been amazing to watch. I think England have an incredible talent on their hands, and for many, many years to come, like, he'll just get better. I think he's under a perfect coach. I think he showed amazing patience as well over the last couple of seasons, and he kind of trusted Pep to be like, look, I will play you when the time is right. And he did. And he, like, fair play to Pep, he lived up to that agreement as well. What I will say, however, I'm a goalkeeper coach, so I'm a UEFA qualified goalkeeper coach, whatever. I'm going to give a hat tip to Meslier at Leeds. So for a really young goalkeeper, to a foreign keeper as well, French, yeah, he's French, to come into the Premier League at 21, is he 21, 20, 21, something like that? Phenomenal. Like 21, unbelievable. Like I've a couple of Leeds fans. Leeds will be a well-supported team in Ireland, and they cannot believe the player they have on their hands. And I do watch goal, as I said, like I do enjoy a centre back. I do love a goalkeeper. When you watch him command at his age, command in a Premier League defense is just phenomenal. I'll give a hat tip to him. I don't think he'll win it. I think Phil Foden will and should win it, but to me, Meslier will go on to phenomenal things. So I would just keep an eye on him as a goalkeeper. He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think for me, I can't really add anything. I think I'll probably go with Foden as well because of, as everyone's already said, how he's played. So I'm not going to elaborate any more on that because I think it's already been said. But yeah, I think he's been exceptional this year. So don't think you can really look past Foden. And lastly, we'll go on who's manager of the year from this Premiership season. So because I saw today that they had Pep, David Moyes, Bielsa, Rodgers. I think that was it. That's all. That was the Premier League. So we'll start with you, Prime. Who's your manager of the season?
Do you know what will happen?
My manager of the season. You're not going to like it. Honestly, I'm going with Ollie.
Okay, Ellie.
No, honestly, again, I was one of the only people to predict him to finish in top 4. And even then, I thought he'd finish 4th and he would just about make it. This guy finished comfortably 2nd. And what is it, 13 or 14 points off this amazing Man City team? I think people need to give him a bit more credit. Again, I'm not saying he's world class. I'm not saying he's one of the best managers of all time. But he does deserve some sort of respect. He's doing something at Man United. And whether or not he should leave at the end of the season, or while the season has ended, whether or not he should leave now is a different conversation for a different day. But what he's done thus far, he deserves that respect.
And what about, we'll go with you, Liam. Who's your manager of the season?
I think what David Moyes has done at West Ham to turn a team from almost relegation candidates. Well, it went down to the final day, to take them into Europa League and to challenge for top 4 can't really be looked past. Obviously, Pep Guardiola has done a good job. I think people don't give Tuchel enough credit for what he's done since he come in, to not really have the full season effect, to have his own team, not have a pre-season, the work with the players, to really basically have to learn on the job to get to know the team and to put a team together to get into top 4. That's underrated as well. But I'd probably say David Moyes, to turn a team from almost, I have them getting relegated at the start of the season, to then finish 6th is a really good achievement, and he's shown that he's not as finished as people actually thought he was. So yeah, I'd go David Moyes.
And what about you, Tim? I know you're just going to go Pep.
No, I'm not actually. Although I'm going to go on a little journey, and then you might guess where I'm going to end up. I think you have to judge something like this on the whole season. So I think you can make some honourable mentions for example, Dean Smith. Not somebody anybody's really talked about, but if you compare Villa of last season to Villa of this season, and okay, that they haven't necessarily reached absolutely the heights, but some very eye-catching results. He's managed that set of players extremely well. They're a much improved side. When I was reviewing my predictions of the season before, or at the beginning of the season to the end of the season, Villa were one of the big surprises. I was having them bumbling around the relegation places. So I'd say Dean Smith for the whole season. Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, what's not to like about this man? The obsession, just the complete eccentricity, and the complete, to the exclusion of all else, obsession of the approach that he adopts. Thomas Tuchel, of course, you have to say that since he has arrived, which isn't the full season, he has put on a coaching masterclass, and the players have almost matched that, certainly with the crowning glory of the Champions League. And so you have to tip your hat in his direction as well. But ultimately, if you're combining that sort of Bielsa-like sense of being mad for it in a perfectly appropriately Mancunian way, and trophies too, judged over the whole season, when Guardiola hasn't had a feather-bedded existence this season, he was managing a side that was having its worst start to a season in his managerial career. When the crisis meeting happened, he decided he didn't like the way the team was playing and realised he had to do something different. So he solved the problem with spectacular results, very nearly epic spectacular results, but definitely spectacular results. So for all the above reasons, you'll be surprised to hear the man wearing the City badge says Pep Guardiola is the manager of the season.
And what about you, Tom?
Yeah, so I love that Prime's gone with Ollie, and I wish I could go with that too. And like, I don't disagree with any of the reasons the Prime has said why Ollie should get the nod. I think, however, on a scale of on a scale of what Moyes achieved with West Ham this season. So I don't know if you know, I work in the gambling industry, and he was one of the favs for the sack, first manager to be sacked. That was because of how shit they were last season. The fans didn't want him there. The board, apparently, he clashed with. And to turn that around this season, sign superbly. So Susek on loan last season made that permanent. Kufal came in. Like, he just signed really smart and got a team that he wanted to play the way he wanted. They were in the Champions League running, whether like realistically or not is irrelevant. They were in the running up until a couple of weeks before the end of the season. That's phenomenal. Bielsa, I love watching Leeds games because it's just, he doesn't change his approach for anything. He's got the fittest team in the Premier League by a mile. They run so much, they cover so much distance. Every player to a man covers so much distance, and they just go for it. They don't, there's no sitting back. It's just nonstop. I think Klopp described once rock and roll or heavy metal football or something. That is what I feel I watch when I watch Leeds. The downside to that is that you can beat them 6-2. So we beat them 6-2. They played perfectly into our hands to how we like to play. But the other flip side of that, the next week they can go out and beat West Brom 5-0. Like, it's just amazing. I think he's also signed quite well. Like Rafinha, he's got a couple of real good ballers on his hands. He's staying again next season. You'd like to see what Leeds do. But for me, it's between Moyes and Bielsa. Pep's obvious, but like, again, a little bit left field. Like, I would give it to Bielsa. For a newly promoted team to come in top 10 finish the way they did it, I'd give it to Bielsa.
I think for me, I love Bielsa's style of football. I'm going to give it to David Moyes. I think what he's done at West Ham, has been exceptional. I'm not always biggest Moyes fan, but I think what he's done has been exceptional. Okay, so that's kind of the last question to wrap up, guys. We've been on here for quite a while. Just want to big up. Thank you guys for all joining us tonight and giving your points. So we're just going to go around. Just if you've got any guys who want to plug or anything. So we'll start with you, Prime. How can people reach you and connect with you?
Obviously I'm on the Football Terrace. Follow across on all socials. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram down below at Adams Prime. And yeah, just it's been quite an eventful year for me personally in terms of getting involved in this whole football content creation world, and I've wanted to be part of it I wanted to do YouTube for so long, and finally I'm part of it, and it's been a really hectic year, both for me, in terms of YouTube and personally in my personal life, and I'm just looking forward to the future, both in terms of my life and Chelsea and content creation and everything. And thank you for having me on.
Pleasure, Prime. I'd love to have you again next season as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Liam? How can people reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, my Twitter handle's there for tweets on Liverpool, French football mainly. I also write articles for the Copy on Liverpool, so again you can find those on my socials. Articles for Over the Bar as well on French football, and I also run as a shareholder of Olympique Lyonnais. I run a podcast with a French-speaking friend on Lyon as well. That's Football English. So if you're interested in getting into a different league and a different football team, you can follow that podcast as well. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and good to speak to you.
Perfectly, and we'll definitely have you on again the next season as well. What about you, Tom? How can people reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, over on Twitter, Tommaso Maldini. I'm not very active, I won't lie. I'm more of a Twitter reader than a poster, but I never miss anything. New enough to this side of the thing. I'm again, my background is gambling and comedy. That's what I do. But this year has definitely been. I've always watched it. Like I've always watched so many different YouTubers about football content, and similar to Prime, like I've always kind of been like, oh, will I? I'd love to get in, love to get my point across. And it's actually Liverpool fans who have brought me into this. The first one was one of your colleagues on another podcast, and then you guys this season. But already have some stuff lined up for next season, which I'm looking forward to. So need to get. I'm old. I'm not as young as some people on this call. Like I'm social is still getting used to this. But yeah, looking forward to next season with a couple of projects lined up. So thank you for having me this season. It's been great meeting you all. So thank you for giving me the platform.
Thanks, Tom. We'll definitely have you go on next season as well. It's been a pleasure. And last but not least, Tim, how can people reach out to you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my day job is in the legal world. So on Twitter, you'll get me at Tim Willits, which is exactly as appears in the screen, except with the appropriate at and no space between the Tim and the Willits. I'm pretty busy with the full-time day job, so I don't have much of a side hustle in this regard, other than I'm very grateful to you, Holmes, for reaching out and involving me this season. I've very much enjoyed it for obvious reasons. If we hadn't won the league, maybe I would have enjoyed it slightly less, but I'm finding it very exciting. And obviously I look forward to doing a little bit of content with you next season and the season to come. You'll all get to check back with me about my Ruben Diaz predictions.
Thanks, Tim. We'll definitely have you on again next season. So yeah, we'll look forward to having you all on, guys, again next season. Everyone in the chat, you've been amazing. Do smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't done. Watch us later as well. Smash the like and subscribe button. Otherwise, everyone, it's been a pleasure having you all on tonight. So I'm going to let you guys go. And progresses. Otherwise, lots of love, and we'll see you all soon.